Abstract expressionism. Think Jackson Pollock's iconic drip painting technique. It's messy, it's raw. It may look like chaos on a canvas. Pollock's method is often lauded as a groundbreaking technique developed in the late 1940s. But actually, before Pollock even began pouring paint, a woman in Brooklyn had already invented the technique. Her name was Janet Sobel. She was a Ukrainian immigrant, a mom of 5, and 45 years old. Never formally trained in art, but an artist in the truest sense of the word, inventing her own style through experimentation, which she did in her New York City apartment's kitchen, using her son's arts and crafts supplies. It's well documented that her pioneering work influenced Pollock. But while her name was relegated to the footnotes of history, his name became widely known as one of the greats, and as the inventor of the drip painting style. This is the story of who actually dripped first. Let's rewind to before the paint, before the drip. Janet Sobel was born in Ukraine in 1893. Except at the time, her name was Jenny Lachovsky, and Ukraine wasn't called Ukraine. When her father was killed in a Russian pogrom, she emigrated to the United States. They landed in Ellis Island, New York in 1908. That's when Jenny became Janet, and 2 years later she tied the knot with a man named Max Sobel. They settled down in Brooklyn and had 5 children. Fast forward to the 1930s when one of their sons was enrolled at the prestigious Art Students League. The same institution Mark Rothko, Georgia O'Keeffe, and Norman Rockwell attended, so you know it was good. The story goes, one evening, Janet criticized the piece her son was working on. He got frustrated, threatened to quit school, threw down his paintbrush, and told his mother, "Well, why don't you take up painting yourself?" Which she did. Janet never had formal art training, and without having ever been told how materials should be used, her creativity was able to flourish outside the guardrails of prior education and technique. No paintings in the art world had ever looked like this before. Completely deconstructed, entirely abstract, with no form other than form itself. She painted her first work in 1938, at the age of 45. It was just the right time for her genius to emerge. Her entire methodology was revolutionary. She would start her paintings by laying a giant canvas on the ground. Then, she would use unconventional materials like glass pipettes to guide paint as it fell. She even used a vacuum cleaner to move enamel around. Talk about leveraging her domestic tools. Her raw emotion inhabited every square inch of the canvas, corner to corner. There wasn't one area left behind. She was creating the first of what would later be called an all-over surface with a drip painting technique. What she was doing had never been done before in the Western world. It was unorthodox, unusual, brilliant. Janet's son recognized her talent and sent letters introducing her paintings to some of the most notable artists and philosophers of the time. Those introductions led to Sidney Janis, one of the most important gallerists, art dealers, and collector in modern art's history, to include her work in a group exhibit in Chicago in 1943. She even had her first solo exhibit at Puma Gallery. But instead of labeling her work as pioneering, revolutionary, or first of its kind, the group show was titled American Primitive Painting of 4 Centuries. That's how they saw her. Primitive, unrefined, on the outside of sophistication. Though she hoped journalists and critics would focus on reviewing her art, publications fixated instead on the fact that she was untrained as an artist and emphasized the fact that she was a mother, a grandmother, and a housewife. Which is technically true, but wouldn't you think it's strange if headlines about Pollock read, "The New York Dad Who Changed the Art World"? Paternity status is usually separated from one's vocation. Some artists, though, like her surrealist contemporaries, Max Ernst and Andre Breton, did recognize her genius. Art News even called her work highly sophisticated abstractions. In 1946, Sidney Janis even said, quote, "Janet will probably, eventually, be known as one of the most important surrealist artists in this country." Unfortunately, the world needed some time to catch on to a female artist who was breaking every rule in the art book. Some critics couldn't get past the cliches. The local newspaper, the Brooklyn Eagle, published an article titled "Critics Acclaim Borough Grandmother as Top-Flight Surrealist Painter," which, while complimentary, underplays her work to that of a grandma with some talent. Only a few years into her big break in the art world, in 1947, she moved to New Jersey so her husband could be closer to his work. What's more, she developed an allergy to an ingredient in paint, so she wasn't able to really paint the way she used to. And thus, her name would soon all but disappear from the art world. Fast forward a decade or two to the 1960s, Jackson Pollock had become widely considered one of the most important artists of the century. The tortured genius poster child of abstract expressionism. Getting credit for what had shot him to fame, for his development of the all-over and drip painting techniques. But Janet wasn't totally written out of the narrative. Luckily, distinguished art critic and close friend of Jackson Pollock, Clement Greenberg, did look back in time and admitted that Sobel's work influenced both him and Pollock. You see, in 1961, Greenberg updated an essay he had previously published in 1955. The updated essay admitted that he and Pollock saw Sobel's work in a group exhibit. He wrote that the two, quote, "admired the pictures rather furtively," and, quote, "it was the first really all-over painting that I had ever seen." While Greenberg technically was giving her credit, he also was adamant in pointing out that she, quote, "was and still is a housewife living in Brooklyn," as well as calling her a primitive painter. Her last name was even spelled wrong when credited. Today, we're happy to bring her name to the forefront. Janet Sobel's story reminds us that genius can strike at any moment, at any age, at any education level, and in any ordinary place. Heck, it might even happen in your apartment kitchen. Thank you, Janet, for pioneering a painting technique that would change the course of art history. Let the record show you actually dripped paint before Pollock, Greenberg, or any of the other modern art greats. Here at Actually History, we're seeing history through a new lens and giving credit where it's actually due. Most of our stories are based on this book, and she co-wrote it. This is, to her credit, Historic Achievements and the Women Who Actually Made Them Happen by Caitlin Colmo and Emily McDermott. We kindly ask, if you're interested in our mission, hit like, subscribe, and stick around. More stories to come. Class is in session.